Today we're going to use Luma Labs Dream Machine to create amazing looking long form animations that actually tell a story. Welcome back to the channel where we discuss the creative uses of AI, and wow, AI video is getting so good. And the rendering times are getting longer. We have services offering us up to 10 seconds at a time. But even at 10 seconds, there's limitations of what kind of story you can tell. There's just something really mesmerizing, at least for now, about watching these AI stories unfold in a way that we've really only seen AI give us. The transitions and impossible things that AI can do are still new to our brains, and at least I really enjoy it, even though it may not be what we're used to or look necessarily realistic in all cases. I'm loving what this is doing. I'm loving the surreal slant that it gives on scenes that already look great and cinematic or wonderfully animated. So today I'm going to share the process I used with Dream Machine to create the video that you saw at the beginning. And I urge you to consider this approach next time you really want to tell a story in an engaging way. If you're not familiar with Luma Labs or Dream Machine, the basic principle is you can either type in some text to guide what you'd like to see in the video, or you can upload an image and or add text prompts to that image to give it even more direction. And then that'll produce an animation that's around 4 or 5 seconds long. Now there are a couple of ways to keep this story going. One is to just use the extend feature, where you simply type a text prompt to tell Dream Machine what you'd like to happen next. This here is the last frame of the animation that was just generated. So whatever we type here will take on from there. So I could say bunny finds hole and jumps in. We have the option to enhance the prompt or to leave that off. Generally speaking, I like to try it both ways to see what we get. Looping would create a looping animation. That's not what we want if we're going to create a long form animation. So I'm just going to click the arrow to start the generation process. Here's another example of what I'm talking about that's already done. I initially uploaded this still image here and gave it the prompt, creature surrounded by a school of angelfish. I didn't get the angelfish, but I did get about 4 or 5 seconds of a nice sort of creature just kind of floating there. So then I just did a simple extension. I didn't give it any other prompt. I just wanted to see what it would do with the creature, if anything, but really the creature just continues to float, which is perfectly fine. But I do now know that I need to be more specific with some instruction. I wanted it to bury itself in the sand. When I extended it this time, I added the prompt, creature buries itself into the sand, kicking up clouds and sending fish scattering. So I had a very definite vision. However, when it rendered itself this time, I didn't quite get that. But we did get the beginnings of the burying in the sand motion. It just didn't happen within this particular prompt. But you can see he's on his way, but that's where the animation stops. So what do? I extend it again with the prompt, clouds of sand billow as the creature burrows beneath the ground. Like I'm really emphasizing, nah, I want this thing in the dirt. And now we get him down there and he will bury himself into the sand like I wanted in the first place. And finally, I haven't even seen this render yet, I added a great white shark swims over is what I meant to say. So let's see what happens. So this is just screaming for some narration and nice documentary music, a David Attenborough voice or something. So let's see if we get a shark coming over. Yes, we do, baby. That's just exactly what, well, it's a two-headed shark. So that's how the normal extend works. Here's the extension to the bunny animation we did, where we added bunny finds a hole and jumps in. So let's see what happens. He finds a hole and jumps in, ladies and gentlemen. But if you want way more control than whatever the AI is going to come up with for the next scene, that's when you use Dream Machine's Keyframe feature, which allows you to define a starting frame and an ending frame. So the AI will decide what's going to happen between starting frame and ending frame. And if you choose your frames wisely, you're going to get some really nice transitions. If you choose your frames not so wisely, you're going to get some camera cuts and probably not exactly what you were hoping for, which is definitely a trial and error thing. But in all of these cases, there was a starting image and an ending image. So where this animation stops, I then start again here and continue it until it goes to another ending image. Here's an example of when the transition doesn't occur the way you want to. I wanted this to transition slowly over to a scene, and what I got was a cut to a completely different style. So in this case, I tried it again, and I got a version where it doesn't go off into the ocean like that. And now with that new last frame, I can create the next segment of the animation. I'm gonna go through all of this step by step so you can see exactly how I put it all together, including adding music and sound effects. So today I wanna focus on the extend feature using keyframes. So to use keyframes effectively, you're going to have some images that make sense for that story. You most likely want them to have consistency among the characters and the sets and scenery and everything. Now you can go into a program like Midjourney or whatever and just create these series of images one by one and tell the story that way. That's a perfectly logical way to do it, and depending on the visual style you want, that may be a requirement for you. But there are tools out there that you can use to help you create a series of images in a storyboard form that are already describing the action that you want, that you can easily drop into a program like this with or without the prompt and get what you want. And that's exactly what I did with the opening video. You can use any tool you want to create this series of images. In this case, I used a program called Catalyst, which I've done a video on, which allows you to basically create a storyboard by just typing in any sort of a prompt. So in this case, because this animation style does so well in Luma, I'm going to use it again. But this particular tool allows you to output in several different styles. As you can see, realistic, we've got an animation style here, we've got an oil painting style and cartoon style. These are the images and the descriptions that were ultimately used in the creation of that animation. So if you're okay with it, let's stick with this cute little Pixar animation style, and we'll stick in the animal kingdom. And let's do something like a dog and cat meet for the first time at a park. At first, they don't get along, but then they are united against a common enemy, a bratty kid, and then become friends. Okay, so I'm just going to have it generate the script. And what happens now is it creates a description of each of these scenes. And then here, of course, we have the style. We're going to choose this animation style here. And we could go through and adjust all of these descriptions to make sure that it's telling the story that we want. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to click on Create Project. And then it's going to create this series of images. So we wait a few minutes for that, and you'll notice that under here we have a description of the action, and when we drill down into the image, we can actually get the prompt that created the image. So we could use either one of these, but since we're going to be using Luma to describe action, we'll probably use this prompt here. Okay, so here come the images. So depending on what tool you use, you can go in there and tweak these things. If the consistency isn't quite right, you can, for example, just go in here and re-prompt everything. This is the prompt here, a large dog and a sleek cat. The dog curiously trotting over, so on and so forth. If I wanted to better describe the cat, maybe say sleek orange tabby cat, and then click generate just to see if we get an image that's more in line with exactly what we want. I'm not going to get hung up on that because this isn't about this tool. We just need a set of images to start with. So now we have the orange tabby cat, but not the dog. I'm too tempted to fix this by using the M-painting tool here. I'm just going to say a friendly dog. And now we have some images with dog. So here's something else to keep in mind. When we're using start and end frames in Luma Labs, when we have two different images like this that are similar, those make great keyframes. Like the consistency between this character and this character is pretty close. This is a totally different dog and this is a totally different dog. But if we were to do an animation between this frame and this frame, it would probably look really good and very natural. So what we would want to do is just download each of these for later use. In this case, we're using this tool to create these images, and then we're just going to download the ones we think are going to make great keyframes for our animation. So here's just an image of a dog, and if we throw that into Luma Labs with no end frame, then it'll just be sitting there panting or whatever. But what if we download this one and we download this one, and then we put this as the start frame and this is the end frame and see if we can get that transition. Same with something like this. Here we have a dog and a cat by a bench, and then over here we have a dog and a cat by a tree. What would happen if we put those two together? Here's a great one that are similar. We can download this boy playing with a stick here, and then here he is at another angle. Let's say we want to make sure that the animation has these two talking for a little bit. So again, I would go into edit and I would create just some variations of this one. I'm not going to change any of the prompt. I just want variations of this so that I can have a starting frame and an ending frame that are somewhat similar. Oh man, these are cute. I'm going to use these two here. I'm going to download this one, and I'm going to download this one. What else we got? This is a nice image. As the sun sets, yeah, okay. Let's just get a couple of variations of this one as well. What could we add to this image that would make a good ending frame? How about we'll put the sun in the sky, and then in the other one we won't, and we'll see if we can get a sunset going. Beautiful, glowing, setting sun. So this should also give us a different, okay, well instead we got like a flying saucer. Not exactly the result I wanted, but now I'm wanting this to be what happens. So instead the story is going to be they're watching the sunset and all of a sudden a spaceship appears. So I'm going to go ahead and download that image and make sure I have this one. We'll keep that program open so we can borrow the prompts if we feel like we need to. Now we have all of our images here in a folder, and we can just start bringing them into Luma and playing with them. We don't have to stick to the order of this, obviously. So let's just drag this first image of the dog here, and then we're going to click the plus sign to add the end frame, and we'll choose this cat picture and see what kind of job it does transitioning from one to the other. I will leave enhance prompt clicked, and I will generate. Meanwhile, let's look at the next set that we'd like to animate. Now, if all goes well with that first animation, this picture of the cat will be the last frame of that animation. So while that's generating, let's jump over here and get this description of the scene. A sunny day at the park, a dog with a bright red collar bounds into the scene, tail wagging energetically. So lots of action in that prompt. I want to do another version of this, and I'm actually going to add to the prompt and plays with a cat. I'm just going to use text to maybe link these scenes together just in case this one may do a fine job. But it's always fun just to kind of see, well, what can make it better. All right, here's the first take. We've got the dog. He's jumping into the air and he becomes a cat. Okay. Not exactly what I was hoping for, but I actually like that, and then the tree steps off. So we could just make this some sort of surreal thing. So if I wanted to extend this, I could certainly do that and just let the AI keep going. But what if I want this image to go to a certain place? Let's rein this flying cat back into the images that we had originally created so we can get back to our story or whatever. So here's the second version with the text prompt. I think I actually like the first one a little bit better because that's just a little too crazy how that transitions. And if we're not happy with that, we can try something else. We can use the extend feature without an end frame, and then if we like where it takes us better, then we can go back to the end frame strategy. I will show you what I mean. Let's start over with our dog. I'm just going to drag it here, and I'm going to say dog playing in the park finds a cat friend, but I'm not going to give it the end frame. I'm going to let it do its thing and see where it takes us in terms of this cat. In the meantime, let's start another keyframed animation between these two with the kid. So we'll put that in as the first frame. We'll put the other image in there as the end frame. And I won't even type a text prompt because it's pretty obvious what's going on here. So this is going to give us this isolated animation of this kid. Let's check out our dog. He's a walking, and he never finds the cat friend at this point. So there's not really that much difference here. So why don't we just go back to the original one and we will work on some extensions there. Now, if we go to extend this frame, well, how do we get it to the next still image we want? We can't really do that. We have to start over and create this thing in segments. And by starting over, I mean we're going to have to go grab this image that we created originally and use it as the first frame and then add an end frame. In other words, we can't add an image to an extend. We can only add the specific end frame we want in the first step of the animation. So I want to get from this image of the cat in the air to this image of these two and see what happens. Well, here's the animation of the kid. See, so this is great because it interpolated those two together very nicely. We had our end frame and we have our start frame and our end frame, and it gave us a whole connected animation in there. So let me go ahead and download this so we'll have it on our drive because we're going to need to fit this into our other animation. So how are we going to do that? Well, just stay tuned. The animation we're working on right now is going to render to this frame right here. That was our goal, is to end it at this frame to get this cat to this. So we can begin working on the animation that's going to go from this frame to this one here. So just add that in as a starting frame and then add this in as an ending frame and just get that thing going. Again, we're creating individual segments that we're then going to chain together in a video editor so that it's one seamless animation, but we have to make sure that the start point and end points line up correctly. And if we're generating random content, for example, if we want to give the AI permission to go in a different direction and then bring it back to our images, we want to have that flexibility too, and this technique allows that. And here's where we can do this exact technique I'm talking about. So we've created the blend between these two, and then we had it continue, but we didn't have an ending image. We just let it extend on its own. So basically, in essence, it's given us another ending image, which is right about here. So what we want to do now, so let's download this video, and then we want to use that last frame that the AI created as a starting point for another video that will then link us back to one of our pre-existing images. So how are we going to get that last frame? So if we have the video loaded, we can just drag it into our favorite video editor. In my case, I'm using Filmora. I can drag the cursor to the last frame, take a snapshot here. That's going to save this snapshot into my directory with all my other images. And then I can use that snapshot as the first frame. And then I want to take this to this frame here. So we're back on track. Now, here's our animation with these two just talking. The cat is oddly still. So I realized I made sort of a tactical error here when I did this in-painting to create this dog. I should have in-painted the cat too because she didn't change at all. And so she's just standing there. Okay, here's the video that connected that last frame of the cat to this one. And it's a little wonky to be sure. So we would probably want maybe a little less extreme differences, maybe an interim frame where there's between where we started and the tree. And that's the whole concept of keyframes is here's a place to go and now let's get you here and now let's get you here. If you go from point A to point Z without the interim, then you might get some weird stuff like this. But I'm going to go ahead and download this. So now this was the ending frame of that last animation. So let's go ahead and try to connect that one to this one here with the dog. And then knowing that that's going to be the last frame of that, I want to try and get us to the sunset. But man, oh man, that seems like a big leap, doesn't it? So let's do this. We're going to use this as the starting frame, and then I'm going to say dog walks toward two orange tabby cats who are walking to the beach to watch sunset. Now I think it would be too much of a leap to go from the dog to those two sitting watching the sunset, so I'm going to just get the dog in action. If we can get the cats in the frame, then my theory is the transition to the cats watching the sunset will be a little smoother. So let's go ahead and get this going. Meanwhile, we can start dragging the videos that we've already got done onto the timeline and start arranging them. So I know that these two go together, right? It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So now this one goes here, and we don't have the video that goes there yet. Where did we start? So this was our first rendering of the opening, and then we originally extended it from this point and it created this image here, which now we've linked to here. It's a little crazed with the movement because again we were trying to get from two cats to a dog and a cat, so we've got some transition going on here. And then this was the one where I was hoping we would see some tabby cats walking by, and we're not seeing them at all. So let's go ahead and just try the straight up transition from this one. Oh, I forgot these two on the bench. So we're going to go from the dog to these two on the bench. And then we'll have two cats together, and then that might be easier to get them to the beach together. So now if we start at the beginning, just kind of watch the work in progress. The dog jumps, he becomes the cat, he comes down, and now the cat goes over to the tree as weird little alien cat morphers with weird arms, and now we move over and he becomes a dog, and then the dog sits there and goes, wow, that was pretty weird. We were just cats, or I was. Yeah, I still am, says the other one. Anyway, so maybe I want it the other way around and have the flying saucer fly away. So I can just flip them right there. Spaceship flies away as cats watch sunset. Go. This is some crazy only in AI stuff, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. Download that, drag it onto our timeline here. We're going to put these two together. Now we've got our last scene, the cats watching the spaceship fly off. We still got a couple of holes to fill in. We've got these two on the bench talking. We've got that first frame where they're really close. Let's do the frame where they're a little bit further apart. And let's just throw a detail like children playing in background. See if we can get a little something going on there and get that going. I think I may want to run this one again. The reason this is happening is the same reason it happened before, and that's because I in-painted this and didn't change the position of the cats. So why don't we just pop back over here to this picture. I'm going to do a generative fill up here of the clouds. Here with the cats again. I want the water different. Clouds over here. The trees, not the rocks, but I want the grass to sway. So how do I even prompt this? There's way too much going on. Cats watching a beautiful sunset. I think I am unrealistically expecting miracles here, but we'll see what happens. Wow, well that's interesting because see, now we do have a bunch of them. So I think this is going to make a much more interesting animation. I'm going to use this one. Download that. Let's see what this did. No, that's a fade. I don't want fades. Let's try this again. All right, so the first frame needs to be this one, and then the second one is where there's nothing. And we will give this a go. So look at this. Oh, it isn't realistic, but I sure like that. I'm going with that transition. We're going to drag that in here. We're going to drop it right here on the timeline. Look how beautiful that looks. Does it look beautiful? No, wait, what happened? Did I skip one? I did. I skipped one. I need this one. Drag it here. Yes. Oh, I'm realizing, though, that animation ends on the one where there's nothing in the sky, and I am going to change the story. Now it's going to start with this one because that animation ended so beautifully into, so I'm going to now fill the sky with those freaking UFOs as they watch. I'll just say spaceships fill the sky. I feel like we got to be getting close to complete here. I think that's really it. We just get those two watching the spaceships come in from that point. We've got like a 35-second clip or so that tells the amazing story of animals changing into other animals and doing impossible things. So we actually pan from these two cats to another set of cats. Sure, I'm fine with that. Let's download this, drag it onto the timeline. All right, so now we have an adventure that starts with a dog in the park and ends in spaceships. Now let's just produce this up just a little bit. We'll get some music up in here. We'll go to audio, click on music, and let's just say whimsical. That's one of my favorite search terms for music. See what we got. I need my headphones. All right. So now we've got a soundtrack, which I'll bring down a little bit. Now we just need a little bit of, environmental sound. So it's not just music. They're in a park. Forest. All right, we'll go with that. Bring that down here. Play with the volume. Happy dogs. Oh, here. No, that's a dog whining. No. What's... Mm-hmm. And right there, it needs to turn into a meow, right? See, we're making it work. We need more cat right here. The slow motion, it's making me crazy. I want them to land with gusto. I could speed up that part of the clip. Right here. Cut. Let's see what that looks like. Much better. You know what? Speed the whole friggin' thing up. So now we just got to change the audio to match. Faster still. Holy moly, that makes a big difference. I think with that camera movement, I don't need a whoosh or anything, but just something that suggests some motion. So I'm going to put some wind in there. We need some communication, like maybe some purring or something. Works for me. Only need that until about there, probably. Fade out a bit. Should probably fade in. And it's probably too loud right off the bat. We need this sooner. And now, crickets. The birds fade. And now I need crickets. Nighttime. I just say night and see what happens. Yep, there we go. Nice. And bring that right about here. Cut that. Probably fade that out too. Oh wait, we gotta fade this sooner. We're lining everything up with the end. So let's make sure the crickets come in right at the time. And scene. And we want to fade this out too. So we're just going to go up to transitions. We're going to click on fade and drag that down here so it will fade out. Let's listen to the crickets. Okay, so obviously the music needs to go down and we need spaceship sounds, baby. There we go. That's nice and cliche. Perfect. All right, we're going to end here. Maybe that music should change earlier because it's too weird, and get some eerie music in there. So we got here, right about here. Let's get the little monsters faded out, and let's find something eerie. That's cool. We're going to let it be fading, and we're going to cut it off here at the end. Maybe actually extend it a little bit. Okay, that's too soon and too loud overall. I just remembered that we've got the clip of the kid and we need to get that in there somehow. So my thought was I would have the kid be at the very beginning and then we would merge to the dog, which is currently the first frame of the animation. But in this iteration, he turns into the dog. I want to give it one more chance to see if maybe there's a better transition to the dog. But if not, I'll go ahead and use whatever they give me and we can finish up the project and just put this video file right at the beginning. Well, he still turns into a dog, but I like the transition better. So I'm going to go with that one. And I like the speed too. So I'm going to download that, drag it into the editor, just bring that over to the beginning. So now the music needs to move over and the ambience needs to move over. I think everything else stays the same, although this will now need to extend a little bit more. Extend this out a little bit more. Oh, we'll need some sound effects of running for sure. Copy those, drag this over to the beginning. I think we're good. Now let's export this. Okay, that was kind of weird, but it was fun to do, and it's sort of a mix between pre-planned story idea and stream of consciousness inspiration along the way. Of course, you can be way more regimented than I was there and really plan your keyframes out, and that will make a huge difference with consistency and having the story go exactly where you want to go. Now you see that you can actually create amazing looking long-form content with coherence and a logical storyline with Luma Labs Dream Machine. Just a ton of fun to play with. If these are the kind of tools and information you'd like to learn more about, well, I invite you to subscribe to the channel because these are the topics we cover all the time.
If you subscribe now, I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you do not, I will look for you. I will find you. And I